Should have made this video a long time ago, but anyway, better late than never, I guess. This video is going to be about my favorite reads from last year, 2024. I know we are at the end of February, and by the time I post this, it might be March. Anyhow, there are a couple of interesting picks here, and I guess everyone should read these books because they're just brilliant. Let's start with something that is not so serious, something that is easy on the brain and it's jolly basically, and you'll cry, but it's like the good kind of crying. You're not crying because of some sort of grave despair or from guilt. It's like good stuff. That is Anne of Green Gables. This is one of my favorite books, and I can't even begin to explain why. When I started this book, it was like a second childhood for me, and I guess I've missed those moments where I could have read things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and had these, fantasies built up in my head. But Anne of Green Gables did that to me when I was an adult. Like, by God, how can you make that happen? I was basically reliving my childhood, and by the end of this book, my childhood was over again. And I guess it has so much to do with imagination, and it teaches you why you should imagine and how it is a very important part of our life. I think if anyone hasn't read Anne of Green Gables, this should be your definite pick. Instead of reading something like Emma, I don't know if I'm in focus. The reason why I kind of I'm interrupting the flow of the video is because I mentioned Emma and I say, why would you read, instead of reading Emma, why would you not read Anne of Green Gables? Which is not a very good comparison to make because they're kind of different genres and from a different period of time. What I instead wanted to say, I guess, was instead of reading Huckleberry Finn or Adventures of Tom Sawyer, I would suggest you read Anne of Green Gables first and then go to Mark Twain. That's what I wanted to say. But instead I said something very else, and I thought about it and I thought that's not working. So this will make you feel good. Emma also makes you feel good, but in a different kind of way. Next one, I don't want to dig suddenly into sorrow, the next one. So I'm going to mellow it out, I guess. Hemingway. And I know this isn't the obvious Hemingway pick, but if you ask me, Hemingway's Across the River and Into the Trees was one of the most intriguing read that I've ever read, especially from Hemingway. People usually say, For Whom the Bell Tolls is one of the good ones. Farewell to the Arms. Of course, Sun Also Rises and Fiesta. But Movable Feast is what I meant. Hemingway, Across the River Into the Trees. I actually began reading it start of the year 2024, but then I gave it up because I just did not get along with the language very much, and I was like, man, this story is absolutely going nowhere. And Hemingway usually does that. He just drops you right in the middle of the story and you don't know what's going on and you have to figure kind of stuff. But this turned out to be one of the most interesting reads. Man, I think this was Hemingway at his peak. Absolute zero, technical plot going on. I just love it. It's just so smooth going, and once you're into it, by the time you're 50 pages in, it just keeps you going. And so many references. I just loved each one of it. And especially the young soldier accompanying him. I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is a must Hemingway read. I don't know why people don't talk about this anymore. Or if they ever did, they should be talking about this more. I don't know, I want some great explanation about this book. Not that I haven't understood the book. I'm just saying make more reviews about this book. It's so good. Anyway, now I think it's about time that we get into a little bit serious topic. So for that we have I actually picked up some other book. The Grapes of Wrath. John Steinbeck. I think John Steinbeck really got into my head after I read Mice and Men. And by God, I was like, this is a little long than what I'm usually comfortable with. And I was like, man, if I'm going to read anything, this is going to be that book. And this, and I know I'm exaggerating each and every book, this is good, like this is must read. But this is all-time classic. This is never going out. Everyone, this shit is just never going out. That's all I have to say. It goes so much into the depth of the working class and like the poor, and so many biblical references for some reason, like Roman charity and stuff. It was a great read, and I understand why it was a little controversial back in the time. And I still understand it's a little bit controversial, especially with his views on sort of capitalism and all of that. But I guess this makes for an absolute dignified opinion of the the working class, and I think it is something that we must understand, and why we should all treat each other as humans, and why we should be compassionate. I think this book taught me deeply about that, having that human connection between people, and why we should have that. It's an essential tool to have good life and treat people better. I guess immigration, all of that stuff, wanted to have a better life, all that stuff right in here. And it's not even like immigration, like kind of moving from one country to another. It's just like states, going from one place to another. Like it's Okies, they're from Oklahoma going towards California. Definite must read. Next one, I think this one is obvious. It's Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment, I don't even know how to begin with this one. It's a dynamic read, like it will make you think, basically. By the time I was done with Crime and Punishment, I set myself on a scrutiny, basically, over all the ills that I'd done to people, and like having that guilt consciousness. Suddenly I was recalculating and recalibrating all of my thought processes, just to see if what I have done and like how I've treated people, is it really all matching up to be a good person. And that reflection taught me a lot. I mean, by God, like I don't understand, like this is such a deep insight into the psyche of human brain. Am I saying it right? Yeah, that's what this is. It's like you don't have to commit an actual crime to actually figure this book out. It's just about like the things or like the sins that we commit. Like I'm not being dark about this. I'm just saying whatever you would consider as sin or something that is wrongdoings, right? And then to recalculate that with this, it's mind-boggling, basically. I don't have a lot to say about Crime and Punishment. Like it's, I guess, self-evident. It's you commit a crime and then you have your punishment. It's like, I think it also goes with saying that you have to be a sane person to receive that punishment by yourself. Like you cannot, if you're a sane person, if you're a good person, all the crimes, sins, or whatever wrongdoings that you've done, eventually you come to a point where you start recognizing them. And you're like, damn, how can I ever live with having done this? I should be punished. I don't know how many times I've already referenced Søren Kierkegaard's, sorry for my pronunciation, mispronunciation, bad pronunciation, Sickness Unto Death. Wanting to be oneself in despair, not wanting to be oneself in despair. This is one of the craziest lines that I've heard, and by God, I have phrased this, rephrased this, paraphrased it so many times to my friends, and this is deep understanding into depression kind of stuff. And it is brilliant. It helps you understand your thoughts, especially having to deal with despair, and how, as you grow into, adulthood, and how that works out with despair. The key concept of this book, should I spoil it? Like I've already said it, wanting to be oneself in despair and not wanting to be oneself in despair. So basically what that means is, if you want to be yourself when you're in despair, that's the worst kind of despair. That means you feel that you're special and everything that is wrong happening with you is only happening with you, and that's why you're special. That's the worst kind of despair. Not wanting to be oneself in despair, you recognize the faults, you recognize the patterns, you want to get out of it, you don't want to be the same person, but both deal with despair. I don't know how to explain it better. If you want to learn, read or understand this concept better, I wouldn't be able to do it. You just have to read this. So that's my top 5 pick from last year. I think there are a couple of others that I would mention, honorable mentions. I think Notes from the Underground, Dostoevsky was brilliant read. What else? I think one more which I should definitely mention is, just a second. I think I should also mention this book because there is an interesting story to go with it. Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte. Now, I read this book while I was sick. I was here on my bed, and each time I started reading the book, I got more sick. Okay, and by the time I finished it, my brain was all over the place. I was feeling very gothic. I was feeling very, very afraid of the dark. And I'm not saying gothic and dark are are some kind of synonyms. I'm just saying that suddenly I was feeling afraid of the dark, and I was feeling very eerie, basically. And that is why I thought that this book was cursed, and I wrapped it up. That's the story. It was horrifying, basically, when I was sick. So yeah, that's it. I guess I've done the part that I should have in January. Doing it now. God knows when I'll be uploading it. Anyway, have a good reading year, I guess. If you're into reading, if you aren't, get into reading. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching if you watched.